Hi there. This is my first video, hopefully in a series of videos, to talk about how to manage emotions and ego. This first one I'm doing is going to be a little bit more based on, I guess, a scientific or method or approach. Not that I have a scientific or medical background. It's just more based on the theory or angle, if you will. So this one in particular, I guess you could say the topic is around energy forms, how they're felt, and then labeled or categorized as emotions, the different labels that we have for emotions. And I think I'd like to start first by posing the philosophical question, which is, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear the sound, does it make a sound? And I think this for centuries, I guess, was something that a lot of philosophers and people pondered on and maybe didn't have the best answer for. But I think now we know that because sound is a device to humans or other animals, that if a tree were to fall in a forest and nothing with that device was able to perceive the sound, really all that would be happening is a vibration, like a wavelength. So how hearing works is that the wavelengths travel through the air and they hit our ear, and then the receptors turn that into what we know as a sound. If no one with that hearing device is there to translate that vibration into a sound, then all it is just a frequency. It's just a wave that's traveling. That wave is still going to be there to other things around to sense it. Plants sense vibration in, I'm sure, different microbes or even insects or whatever, they would sense vibration. So with that in mind, I would like to speak about how emotions can be thought of in this way as well. They can be synonymous to senses, hearing, seeing, smelling, and basically emotions are frequencies, they're vibrations, and they rise up like a bubble, and then our brain perceives that frequency and that vibration, and when we're very little, we're taught, that feeling, that energy, not that it's called that when we were kids. I think even this is such a newer approach in modern medicine and modern science, is to realize the energy around emotions, and to realize and for us to even to start identifying ourselves as energy. So when we're little, we are taught that that frequency that we're feeling is called happiness or sadness or anger, etc. And that label is part of our an important part of our language, so that we can communicate with each other. So it's meant to be helpful, but it's also in a sense counterintuitive, because basically once we have that label, we can over-identify with those things, thinking that we are those frequencies, or that somehow those frequencies are caused by us or caused by others. So I'd like you to think again of the of this, of emotions as like a bubble rising up, and that bubble has a certain frequency or a vibration that gets categorized. And so, like the tree in the forest falling, I'd like you to think about it that, if there was no ear to hear that vibration, I'd like you to think about it like that. What is, if you stripped away your physical being, what would that emotion be? Because like you need an ear in order to, or an ear and a brain in order to hear a sound frequency. What do you need in order to perceive an emotional frequency, an emotional energy? You need your body and your brain, and our emotions are largely felt in our body. There's more recent studies showing that where they've actually, I think they used, and this was done in Asia, they used 300 some odd people, and they sort of charted where the emotions were felt. And surprisingly, we're not really, thinking, we feel like we feel them in our brain, but, and this won't surprise you that in another sense that a lot of us, the top one that we tend to think of is that we feel things in our chest area, like the heart or our stomach. And like if you were to go to a doctor and say like, I have chest pains, or I have like constant stomach ache, and they were to rule out that, there was nothing external potentially causing it. A lot of doctors are going to, think that they're going to ask you if you have a lot of stress in your life. So, the medical society is well aware of how these energies affect us physiologically. And so I guess back to what I was saying is that if this energy bubble rises up in you, and you were to almost imagine like, taking away the story behind that emotion, and taking away the label even behind that emotion, and saying, what is this frequency? What does it feel like? But without really not giving an answer like, oh, well, it feels good or bad, or it feels like anger or sadness or happiness. Just what it feels like in as a sensation in the body. And if you were to strip away your human self, what is that what is that's left? It's just a frequency. It doesn't mean anything. The same way that a sound wave doesn't mean anything. It only means something once it's interpreted and labeled. So I'm not devaluing the purpose, or saying like you shouldn't be feeling these, like all these things are very important, and to be validated. But I guess what we don't often realize is how many external factors influence our moment-to-moment, day-to-day emotions. And there are so many that it's really not like worth the amount of time that you could spend constantly mapping out why an emotion is caused. Again, even in more modern scientific society, they're even seeing the correlation between our human behaviors and things like solar cycles, magnetic flares, the lunar cycle. I mean, and those are more even still like sort of abstract influences. The ones that we more readily would think of is, our genetics, our experience, our upbringing. We know that lack of sleep can affect emotions. Diet, lack of exercise, maybe hanging around people that gossip a lot. So, like all these things can affect. And if you were to just every single time have an emotion, beat yourself up or point the finger to where and why it's coming from, the longer it's going to take for you to be able to just start enjoying, like living your life. And I'm not saying this is any easy task. Like even for me to be doing this video, like I've got, some nervousness and some ego involved. But if we were to find certain tools that kind of work for us to transmute or like let these emotions be what they are, frequencies, vibrations, without just getting so overly attached to them to the point where we're not able to just enjoy our lives the way that we could be, and doing the things that we'd like to be doing. So, I think that this one for me works currently very well. It changes. I come up with different methods, and then it'll work amazingly for me one week, and then the next week, then I get a different sort of idea that works for me. So I am going to be making other videos that might resonate a bit more with how to sort of utilize these concepts in a more practical approach. But again, for this video, it's more imagining, relating it to things like sound or smell or whatever, where the body's a device, and these frequencies that it is different, I guess, somewhat, in the senses that the energies, like this is where I could go into the innate or nature versus nurture origin of emotions. Where do these energies originate from? Are we born with some of them and whatnot, or are they produced on the outside? And it's a combination of both, and really an entire video, another video in itself. But for the purposes of this, in order for maybe you to try out seeing if you can have a bit of a friendlier relationship with the feelings that do come up, maybe you could try practicing with this. So whatever emotion comes up, you would ask yourself, what is this, without labeling it. Like, it's going back to feeling it. Like, what is the sensation? And then asking, what is this when I'm not involved with it? What is this when my human that I'm in is taken out of the picture? And all it is it's just a frequency, it's just a vibration. Without the human, it doesn't hurt anybody. So, and if that if that works for you, and you want to be a bit more adventurous with it, because this be a really good practice, because the quicker and better you get at this, you might be able to start cycling through stuff like that. So you can almost make it like a tasting board. Find certain thoughts that trigger different emotions, not just bad ones, good ones too, and taste all of them. Like feel all of them. Like, okay, what is? But you apply the practice to each one of them, even the good ones. What is this sensation? Okay, and then you feel the sensation. And then what is the sensation when the human is taken on the picture? It's just a frequency. It's just a vibration. It doesn't mean anything at that level. It doesn't mean anything. And so you could practice with that. Another thing I'd like to add, another thing I'd like to add is, if it's helpful to you to become a bit friendlier with, why we feel these things, why do I have to feel this and feel that, is the purpose behind these emotions. Their significance, again, synonymous to other senses, are an evolutionary purpose. They're there to help us, even at very primitive states, and maybe I can make a list for that and either put it at the end or put it here. I don't know. Basically, what would be a good example? Fear is a good example. We needed fear in order to protect us from certain dangers. We needed extreme, maternal love, and still do, in order to take care of our young. That was an example of a negative one and a positive one. I think even probably like ones like jealousy or like being overly confident. I feel like throughout history, all of these had sort of their place to protect what we needed to protect to survive and continue to procreate and continue to evolve. But we are getting to a very interesting new time where a lot of these energies and emotions are outliving their purpose, like, wisdom teeth or your appendix. And now they have a purpose, but it's a different purpose. Before their purpose was survival. Now their purpose is for us to sort of hatch out of them. They're there to make us, now they're just uncomfortable. They're just uncomfortable most of the time for no good reason. And that's pushing us to want to evolve consciously. So no matter what, however you look at, the worst emotions or the best emotions, it might help you to, not villainize them and not look at them as such a negative thing, and know that, they had a really good place, thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they have a good place now, and sort of for different reasons. So it's very precious, really, very important, quite interesting, and so complex. So, yep, just is there anything else I wanted to add here? I guess, yeah, one other thing I wanted to talk about is there's predominantly two major approaches to how emotions are dealt with in humans. And there's a feminine and a masculine approach. And this does not at all necessarily mean that because you're a woman that you just deal with the feminine, or because you're a male that you just process with the masculine. It can be a combination of both, or you might, be the opposite gender of the one that predominates in your body. So on one end, there's a lot of people that would overthink an emotion, and basically, as we know, the emotions are energies. So when you overthink on that energy, you overthink them, you're feeding that energy. This approach, both of these approaches that I'm going to mention have an upside and a downside. And I would say the upside to the overthinking one is probably that, obviously overthinking is bad, and you're feeding that emotion, which means you're going to feed it a lot, and that can have all kinds of physiological effects, same as whatever other way you deal with it. But I guess on the upside of when you overthink them is maybe you're more likely to come to a conclusion eventually of how to deal with that. But the process you took to get there, you're going to have created so many strengthened neural pathways of anxiety and overthinking that it's not going to help your future problems. You're going to have to take that same elongated approach. I would say that's more the feminine approach. Like I said, this is nothing necessarily to do with your gender or what you identify as. This is just variances in energies like yin and yang. And the other way to people would approach or deal with their emotions is to avoid them. And essentially where, like overthinking them is to feed them, to avoid them is to really, really trap them. And this one, just like the other approach, it has its good sides and its downsides. So, maybe the good side when you avoid it is that you're just like, okay, well, I can just sort of put on a happy face and carry on and not deal with it right now. And that way, my image is preserved to myself and others. But the downside of trapping energy, I think, is pretty obvious. If it's not at a good vibration for the body, it can cause health problems. And depending on the vibration and the potency of it, it will try eventually and find its way out. And, that can come out in not so great behaviors or be dealt with in so not great ways. Like, we would maybe turn to things to numb it. Very, very common in our society to turn to alcohol or medications and stuff to numb it. These are temporary fixes, and they're not, they're just trapping it. You're not transmuting it. You're not dealing with it. You're not having a healthy relationship with something that is, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a vibration. It's just an energy at the end of the day. When you take yourself out of the picture, when you take your human out of the picture, when you take the history and the reason why we even learned these emotions to begin with for survival tactics, when you take all that out of the picture, it's just a frequency. It's not harmful. So I hope this was helpful to some. If there were specific things in this that you felt like really stood out that you'd like me to maybe delve more into, or there was something maybe that you were like, I don't know, that kind of took me off track, or feel free to tell me, or comment or whatever. And I guess I look forward to making some more videos.